There's a fine line between having a cool look with the zebra bandana and looking like a bad Rick James video. And I'm not cool as Rick James, so I could never have pulled that off. So if somebody goes, dude, you need to get some zebra boots. I said, I'm not going to go and play Super Freak. Okay? No. I ain't got that kind of coolness, so.
That might be a little too far.
That might be a little too far.
This is the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast, where we interview travelers, explorers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the best tips and stories from around the world.
All right, everybody, we're coming at you from East Texas. Well, we're somewhere in Texas. We've been driving for like an hour. I'm here with V. Chester Moore again. This is your third time on my podcast, man.
Yeah, dude, it's always fun, man. Me and you always have a ball. We're here leaving Southeast Texas, headed toward Arkansas. We're going to be at the Falcon Monster Festival this weekend, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the legend of Boggy Creek. And I'm going to be speaking on dark outdoors. And I guess we'll talk more about what that is later, right?
Yeah, so I got down here yesterday, mid-morning, noonish.
Yeah.
And we've been running around. First thing, so this is the most Chester Moore story that I think you could ever have. We get off the plane, he goes, I gotta make a quick stop. We stop at a friggin' exotic pet store. There's just snakes everywhere. Of course, you know everyone there.
Yeah.
Because you run the Higher Calling Wildlife and the foundation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm just standing in the store, you're talking to everybody, and you're like, hey, I gotta go get something. Hold this thing. And you handed me, what was it?
A Cotamundi.
Cotamundi.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there, and everybody in the store, there's people coming in and out of the store. I'm holding this little thing. It's like basically a baby kitten size.
It's a 6-week-old Cotamundi. Yeah.
6-week-old Cotamundi. And all this group of kids walk in, they're like, oh my God, it's so cute. What is it? I'm like, I honestly don't know what it is. I'm just holding it.
They're going to be kids going out. That zoo guy was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
The zoo guy with the tattoos was awesome at S&S Exotics.
And that's me, and I didn't know what I was talking about. But I let him pet it. I didn't know if I was supposed to, but I definitely did.
Well, it's a cool little animal. His name is Roddy.
Roddy.
Of course, named after the great Roddy Piper, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And we have fun with our names and critters. And he'll be part of our outreach at the Kingdom Zoo Wildlife Center and our outreach we do for hurting children out there. And Cotamundis are great. He'll be a really awesome asset to that. But it's a very Chester story, I think.
Yeah.
Get off the plane. We got to go pick a Cotamundi up.
Yeah, I'll literally get my stuff in this truck and at a wild exotic place in 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
That was awesome. So really, one thing before we talk about wildlife and stuff, which is you're an expert wildlife talker and writer, we really impressed with your new setup you got at the wildlife or the Kingdom Sanctuary. I screw up the name. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We were up really late last night.
Everybody screws it up. So our facility is the Kingdom Zoo Wildlife Center.
Zoo Wildlife.
And that's also the headquarters of our Higher Calling Wildlife Outreach. It kind of doubles as both.
And yeah, I recorded some videos for your office, for you in your office. The setup looks awesome. It's super awesome. You're going to be doing awesome things out of there. So definitely excited that you're doing that. And I was kind of wandering around while you're getting ready to go. There's animals everywhere. What do you have there on site? You have a fox, tortoises,
African crested porcupine.
Huge.
Yeah, he's awesome. His name's Logan. So we have our favorite thing in the world is Christ in the Bible. But of course, we go down a few notches. We hit Star Wars, Marvel, and wrestling. So everything else is named after that. I would like to tell you that my ferret's named Peter's the Apostle, but it's Peter Parker. And Logan is, of course, Wolverine.
Yeah.
And I have a Doberman Pinscher named Phoenix. And I had one named Storm. We have Hawkeye, the Bull Mastiff. But we have Bengal cats. We have a kind of an exotic sheep, kinkajou, sulcata tortoises, red-footed tortoises, Siberian chipmunks, ferrets, a couple of species of snakes, a bunch of tarantulas. And these are animals, when you have a kid that's been through a trauma, work with children that have had critical illness or parental loss or in the foster system or dealing with serious stuff, these animals help us break through, and they come to us, and we haven't had a kid yet, literally, by the power of the Holy Spirit and the amazing touch of just being around a cool animal that we haven't had a kid yet that came out of there and didn't have a smile on their face.
That's awesome, man.
You know, and that's really the ticket. That's what it's all about, man. Believe me, I love our animals. I love doing that. But if somebody said there's another way you could reach kids just as effectively, I would get rid of it all tomorrow, because it's 3 hours a day at work, and you know, it's a lot of work, but it's fun. And like I said, we've had the most damaged kids in the world you could imagine, and some of them come pretty sad and they leave with a smile. So that's what it's about, man.
So one thing, you know, we were driving around yesterday and saw an alligator first thing driving on the Sabine River. Is that where we were at, or was that the bay?
We were on the north end of Sabine Lake, the northernmost bay. Yeah, Texas, Louisiana border.
So what do you got? I mean, I know you guys it's on the coast. So what kind of species do you have in there? I mean, you've been fishing on there your whole life.
So if you go right immediately, so where I live, and you saw all of our facilities, is right in literally the southern mile or two of the Piney Woods. You go literally like maybe 2 miles, you're in the coastal floodplain, the coastal marsh. So let's talk about that coastal marsh region. You have, of course, alligators, a lot of alligators. A lot of reptile life. You've got cottonmouths. You have the beautiful mud snake, which is an awesome snake. They get huge and they're beautiful. You have a lot of water snakes, diamondback water snakes, Mississippi greens, broad-banded. And then you got, unbelievable bird life, stuff like roseate spoonbills.
Those are cool birds.
Yeah.
I got a photo of one in Florida.
Oh, that's cool. They're awesome, man. And, your typical stuff like your great blue herons and cattle egrets along the pastures, and a lot of cool stuff. We get, if you go offshore a little bit, you get frigates, which are really cool. A lot of waterfowl. We have local mottled ducks, which are a non-migratory Gulf Coast regional duck. They basically look like a hen mallard, very similar to a hen mallard, both a male and female. Super cool. We got white-tailed deer, too many feral hogs, alligator snapping turtles. We got a endangered species, which I've never literally seen one in our base system, but there's supposed to be a few there. The diamondback terrapin, which is an endangered species. And then, once you get into the fish, man, we're talking your sport fish, your redfish, your speckled trout, your flounder, sheep's head, black drum, alligator garfish, a lot of alligator gar. Then we start getting into stuff like offshore. You got stingrays, you got bull sharks, spinner sharks, blacktip sharks, Atlantic sharpnose, bonnet heads, king mackerel, wahoo, dolphin. We got flipper dolphin, but dolphin, dorado, mahi-mahi. We talked about regional names earlier. There's one with regional names.
Yeah.
So it's like biodiversity heaven. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And well, it was funny because I was talking about all the stuff, up north where I'm at in Ohio. And, we're talking, we need to get you up. You said you never caught a walleye, which to me is what?
Yeah, dude, I totally got to catch a walleye. That's like on my list.
That's like all you guys down here, like, we've never caught a redfish? Like, what? Like, that's like walleyes all over up by me.
Well, I've heard they're really good to eat.
Super good.
I think they're really cool fish. And I love, I'm like you, Paul. One of the things I really respect about you is you like to immerse yourself in whatever environment you go into. And you like to be appreciative of whatever fauna is there. And that's like me, man. Like, have I caught stuff that fights a lot harder and gets a lot bigger than a walleye? I mean, I've caught 8-foot-long white sturgeon.
Yeah.
But, dude, it's a freaking walleye. How cool is that? So yellow perch, I've caught a few of those. I'd love to go catch some big yellow perch.
That's my favorite fish to eat.
Really?
To be honest.
Really? Yellow perch. Cool. So I've caught little ones in New York. But, anything like that, I love immersing myself in the biodiversity of any place I go to. And I don't have to catch, when I go fishing, for example, the biggest fish. But if I catch a new species or something, I don't get to do a lot. That's always a lot of fun.
Hey everybody, thanks for checking out this episode. If you feel like you're getting something out of it, go down in the link below and buy me a coffee. The Aptitude Outdoors Podcast is fully self-funded by me. So if you're digging it, I'm just throwing out a tip jar and I appreciate you listening. Let's dive right back into this episode.
So we were talking on the stuff that you had me film earlier today in your office.
Yep.
You're kind of talking about your passion for wild sheep and turkeys, and how you kind of come to this conclusion that, this is what you really need to focus on.
Yeah.
And on our first podcast, I don't think we really touched on that you were on too much. So, like, on the conservation end, let's just go sheep first.
Yeah.
What drew you to to make that decision that you're really going to focus on wild sheep, and then, you know, what is your path that you're going down to kind of make that happen? What's your strategy to help conserve them more as a writer, as a, you know, presence online, as a podcaster?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking that question, because I think no one's really asked me that yet, on that particular way. So I think it just goes back to childhood to start off with. I mean, we opened up some scrapbooks that me and my dad used to put together.
Yep.
And if you look back, I would cut out pictures from Field and Stream, Outdoor Life, and all these magazines, and Sports Afield, and Dream, hunting and fishing, stuff I wanted to see, catch, and wild sheep were omnipresent. And I just always thought they were amazing. Well, you know, I'm in the outdoors business. I'm a wildlife journalist. I'm not prejudiced on what I'm going to write about. If you want me to write about redfish and you're going to pay me about it, we're writing about redfish. Well, I live on the Texas coast. There was a giant coastal fishing boom when I started my career, and that became the bedrock of my career. And it's great. I still love doing that stuff. But I was in prayer 3.5 years ago, and the Lord put the words higher calling on my heart, and I knew it was spiritual, but also I really believed that He was leading me toward going back to my roots and saying, okay, Chester, you're in a position now where there's a lot you can do creating your own media to write what you want to write about and broadcast. And it was really drew myself back to wild sheep, wild turkeys, that mountain and forest wildlife stuff. And the sheep thing, I think, is important because it's like a challenge within a challenge within a challenge. They have so much. So, you know, when we came to North America, when European settlers came, and everything got wiped out because we thought everything was endless, right?
Yep.
And, you know, we've done a great job of bringing back the bison. 500,000 bison. We've done a great job of bringing back whitetail to the point there's too many, 27 million whitetail, 1 million elk, 6 or 7 million wild turkeys, which we'll get to turkeys later. But wild sheep have come back from a low in the 50s of like 25,000 on the bighorn sheep side, but you know, they're probably quadrupled that, but they're still mega challenges because of there's a thing called MOVI. It's M-O-V-I, and I can't pronounce that, but it's basically a pathogen that gets to wild sheep from domestic sheep and goats and makes them susceptible to pneumonia and other respiratory ailments, and it's like a pandemic. It wipes them out, and it's still a factor, plus predation, plus development. And I think on the eastern half of the U.S., as wild turkeys go, so do our forests. I think in the western half of the U.S., as wild sheep go, so does everything else. To me, they're like the proverbial canary in the coal mine because stuff affects them first. And they're beautiful. I mean, how could you not be inspired by... I watched last year. Now, I've been to the mountain, literally, on wildlife. I've seen great white sharks breaching. I mean, I've cage dived with white. I've been very humbled and blessed to experience this stuff. But me and my wife were in Colorado last year, and we found some bighorns. And they were on this trail, and there were 4 big rams, and all of them were cool with us being there. We were probably 75 yards off. I have my lens, good 400 millimeter lens, so we're in perfect range. And the one ram looked nervous. And I'm like, where is he going? The only way he can come is straight over us, which he wouldn't do that, or straight up there. Well, he went straight up there. And it was about 12, 13 feet up. He literally looked at it, he hit a rock at 8 feet up with about that much of his hoof and shot up the rest of his 300-pound body on top of that thing. So to see an animal that's capable of living in inhospitable stuff that'll practically kill us, especially a flatlander like me, I think it's worth our attention. And I think they're so inspirational. And if we get what we do with sheep right, the rest of the stuff's going to fall into place, I believe.
Yeah. And I've never seen a wild sheep. And, you know, I would love to someday. I don't get out west very much. I feel like I'm in Texas more than Ohio
Paul,
at this point.
I'll tell you what, Paul, I'm going to make a challenge. I'm going to open challenge.
Oh, God, here we go.
Oh, here we go. How about Paul and Chester go to one of my spots I like in Colorado in the fall, and we do a wild sheep expedition.
That'd be sweet.
And elk, and while they're in rut, everything else.
Whatever else. Photography expedition?
Yeah, photography expedition.
I'm game for that.
Yeah, photography expedition.
That would be great.
'Cause you know what? We po' boys, we can afford that, right?
Yeah, we can take pictures all day long, baby. That don't cost nothing.
Well, you know what? This sheep thing really connected with the photography thing. I mean, photography's been part of my thing since I was a kid. And I took my first bighorn picture and I gave it to a friend of mine. And he knows so much about wild sheep. And I gave it to him. And I said, man, you know what? I may never get to kill a bighorn because, look, it's hard to get bighorn tags. If you get an outfitter tag, it's going to cost more money than I make in a year.
Yeah, for real.
And I draw for raffles and stuff, and maybe I'll get one. I said, but I had fun taking that picture, he said. He gave me the greatest perspective on wildlife photography that rejuvenated my love of wildlife photography, especially for sheep. He said, Chester, in the Bible, David was being pursued by King Saul. David snuck into Saul's tent one night and cut a piece of his robe off to let him know he could have killed him. But he didn't. So when you get within photo range of a bighorn and you push that button and get that photo, the only difference was you didn't have a rifle in your hand.
Yeah.
So to me, that really gave me a great perspective on the power of photography and the challenge of it. And I honestly, I would love to go hunt a bighorn, but I get easily as much of a charge out of photograph.
I've found that too with photography. It's just as challenging as hunting.
Yeah.
Because you have to do all the same stuff. You have to be quiet.
Yeah.
You have to be camouflaged. You have to be, really still with your movements. You can't make drastic movements. And you're not killing something.
Yeah.
And you get to cherish that. Like, you get a photo at the end, you're like, oh man, I get to look at this forever. You can get to like a mount.
Exactly.
But it costs $20 to print a photo.
Yeah, exactly, man. You can get really fancy with frames, get like $100.
Yeah, there we go.
But that really inspired me. So yeah, that's what I'm doing on the photojournalism side. I'm writing a lot of articles, posting my highercalling.net, publishing in different magazines. I've done some stuff for the Idaho Wild Sheep Foundation, and something just went to the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia, Texas Bighorn Society, trying to inspire the people really into sheep. But on the outer edge of that, I'm never just for the base. I want to make the tent bigger. So the podcast, having engaging guests on, like Ray Thornton, the president of the CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation, and I got a guy that's coming on. He actually already came on. We're going to run this one here real soon. And we're talking about a documentary he made called Transmission, about the transmission of the Mobi, and doing that kind of stuff. But my goal is in 10 years, which is 7 more years, to photograph wild sheep in every state and province.
That would be great.
Yeah, so I've already got 5. COVID really messed me up on...
messed everyone.
Yeah, on the original agenda, but...
so what all the areas are they in? Like, where are you trying to go?
So we're going to skip Mexico, just because, it's a little dangerous down there in some of those areas. So Mexico, we know they're down there. Thank you. All right. I've already written about it, but I'm going to stick to the States and Canada. So it's Texas, which I already got my Texas. I got my New Mexico, got my Colorado, I got my Montana, and I got Nevada.
Okay.
But they're in Arizona, California, Utah, Oklahoma has a small population. Yeah. Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota for sure. Wyoming, Washington, Oregon, and then you go into Alberta, British Columbia, the Yukon, Northwest Territories, Alaska. So there's a lot of places to go. And you got the Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep, which is the most abundant. Then you have the desert bighorn sheep of the American Southwest. That's western Texas, Mexico, all the way into California. There's some in Utah, Nevada, all that. And then you have what are called thin horn sheep. So those would be the stone sheep and the Dow sheep. They're all part of what's called the Grand Slam, Then you have a subspecies called the California bighorn, which are mainly, oddly enough, in Oregon and Washington and British Columbia. But
California.
California bighorn. So it's, and there's a Fannin sheep, which is an intergrade where you have stone sheep and Dow sheep kind of meeting up, and so it's endlessly fascinating. And there's some issues that we're trying to address, like just learned, thanks to our friends at the Wild Sheep Foundation, about the issues facing the thin horns. The idea was that Dallas sheep in particular seemed to be kind of bulletproof because there wasn't much of the disease transmission issues in comparison to bighorns, but that's popped up. But a bigger issue, climate issues. There are ranges in Alaska that lost 70% because of cold weather. And then they would from what I've understood, it's like it would freeze really hard, warm up, and then freeze again, and it wiped out food supplies and stuff. So there's a lot of that stuff, and I don't have the money to contribute to make a difference. I'm not like a doctorate in biology, but man, I can communicate.
Yep.
And I can communicate really well. So that's what we're going to use is moving forward. The podcast medium, the blog at highercalling.net, and stuff like that. And we're engaging kids. I've got some curriculum stuff I've written on wild sheep that have been distributed to some homeschool, stuff like that. I've done some presentations at schools and stuff like that too. So that's always fun.
Well, that stuff's important, and I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but you gave a presentation at the Hunt Fish Podcast Summit this year where you talked and you basically said, forget about the future generation. You're talking about the now generation. Like,
yeah. You know what, man? That hit me one day. Because you always hear everywhere, I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's in a business, it's in a university, it's in a church, a wildlife council. We're helping the next generation. Well, they're more media savvy than all of us. They're the now generation. Why can't they make a difference right now?
Yeah.
And we're seeing that. We're seeing young people engage in stuff, raising funds for wildlife conservation, raising awareness. And so we're equipping them to do it now. Get out there now. You can be now. There's no good old boy syndicate system to stop you. Use your own skills and your own media and be inspired that you can and you're able and you're equipped, And we try to equip them through Higher Calling Wildlife, our outreach with information, inspiration, and if necessary, mentorship.
Well, that's something you and I talked about kind of in detail last night, was why we were so drawn to like these non-traditional forms of media like podcasting and your blogging. And I mean, you and I both work in traditional media. We work in traditional media. So having the freedom to talk about and do whatever you want, and nobody can tell you what, when, and where to do whatever. I think that's really important now, and I think that's changed the ball game for a lot of people, because you don't have to answer to someone.
No.
We can talk about wild sheep one day. You can talk about whatever, at any time. And I think that's really important. But, it kind of also can lead to misinformation. I like to think that I put out good information with just by having the guests that I have. And like, same for you. You are always putting out good information. Our buddy like Derek's always putting out good information on Impact Outdoors. And, that can get a little scary, because I do listen to podcasts and I'll hear stuff and I'm like, oh, this is so misleading. It's so wrong. But, it's a slippery slope. But you have to take the good with the bad when you're talking about freedom of speech and freedom of media and stuff.
In a way, it's like the Wild West.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, here's a gunslinger that's going to come to the saloon, and he's going to, shoot his information out, her information out there, and we're going to see what happens. And, what gets me, what really, I think that is if there's an issue with it, it's the fact that anything in media, because you're projecting yourself out there in the public, can become an ego thing.
Yeah.
And I think that you avoid that. If it ends up being too many me's, I turn it off.
Yeah.
So I'd rather it be us, them. Let's do something collectively for wildlife and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's important, because when I started this podcast, it was like I just wanted to BS about nature and drink beer with my friends and hang out. And then I realized, like, oh man, people are listening to this. I probably should do something that I feel like is good.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's why I sort of changed the focus to conservation and wildlife. And, it's not always going to be so diehard everything. You got to have fun every once in a while.
Well, yeah, too. I mean, I'll do just one on, like, I did one on my top 5 saltwater fish I want to go catch.
Yeah.
I did one on my top 5 freshwater fish I want to go catch. Just to change it up. But the essence of it is the appreciation of the resource.
One thing that I was thinking about, while we were just kind of driving around all day yesterday, and we're talking and running tired, middle of the night and hanging out. It's like, what? So, like, for instance, your daughter, she's super into sports.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm not into sports at all. You're not like a diehard sports fanatic.
Yeah.
But that's how we are about the outdoors.
Yeah.
Like, that's everything to me. Like, that's literally came down here to hang out with you and Derek for the week and film outdoor stuff and because that's my sports game. This is my Super Bowl,
Man.
And like how did it become that way? It's so weird how people find these passions and it's just like seemingly out of nowhere, because like there are millions of people out there whose dad took them hunting and they probably hate the outdoors and all they care about is football and or golf, and they don't hunt anymore and stuff. Like, why did we do you ever think about that? Like, why did this become so important to me, and like that it's all consuming? Like, why is it so important all of a sudden? Not all of a sudden, but as a passion when other people could care, the majority of people could care less.
That's a great question, and it's making me think back a little bit, because I'm like, my earliest memories were outdoor stuff. And you're right, I had friends that had similar upbringings that have about 1% of the passion I have for this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it comes down to appreciation. Our culture isn't the most into honor and appreciation. And I think the people that appreciate what they get want and appreciate blessings in life, that once those people who've made that decision to be appreciative step into this and they encounter that bighorn sheep, they catch that tarpon, they see that turkey strutting and gobbling, that they appreciate that exists, and they want nothing more than to make sure that can keep existing. And I think it's got to be related to people's how much they appreciate things and how grateful they are, because this is a blessing. And I think everyone I've ever met that talks like you do, Paul, about wildlife is very grateful. I think it's a gratitude thing. And I think those who are grateful have something else happen and just hit me. I think it's gratitude meets encounter. Like maybe you go fishing and maybe you go deer hunting, but something on the trail comes up. There's a moment to where you go, oh, wow. And I can tell you what mine was. I can tell you straight up, I can't tell you the day, I can tell you the year and where I was at. And it's the one that set me ablaze. I was already way into it, but it was like, this was, I think, what aimed me toward career. Rabbit hunting with a Sheridan 20 caliber pellet gun on the railroad tracks behind my house along some woods and some rice fields. And a mountain lion walked out in front of me at about 10 yards and looked dead at me. And I already knew more about mountain lion ID than, most people do. So I thought they were awesome. And when I locked eyes with that thing, I was terrified.
Yeah.
But I was like mind blown too. It was like nature specials on Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom just came to life in front of Chester North. It became to life in front of me.
Yeah.
And when I realized that I could literally go and connect with the apex of wildlife, even in my own neighborhood, so to speak, that was it for me. I just went head first. So I think it's the idea of someone who really appreciates what they're experiencing collides with an experience, like a real experience, like there's a moment. You know what I mean?
I think one of the things that I've always liked the outdoors and nature and just just being outside is great for me. I just love it.
Yeah.
I don't even have to be doing anything productive, I guess you could say, like fishing or hunting or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I go my family's had this property on a lake up in Michigan for literally 3 generations now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just never took the time to try and be good at fishing.
Yep.
We'd go out there and like, you know, dick around and throw stuff in the lake and just kind of hope for the best. But as I've gotten older, it's like the thought of targeting specific species.
Yeah.
The thought of trying different presentations at different times of the day to catch different fish it's like, that's my video game. You know, that's my, that's my like, oh, I leveled up. Like, I talk about this a little bit I did a solo podcast the other day before I left for this trip because I was kind of concerned I would run out of guests.
Yeah.
You know, it's the thing with podcasting. You're like, oh, okay. So I talked about, I don't know if this will come out first or that'll come out first. I don't know. But talked about like when I went out after reading a book on crappie, watching, we were talking about old Bill Dance reruns.
Oh, yeah, man.
Watching old Bill Dance reruns on YouTube. I went out and I just took all that advice and I got the jigs and the slip bobbers and I'm trying all this stuff. And the moment that a crappie hit that and I hit, like, that's the first time in my life I've actually went out and tried and targeted a species.
So like you read the book.
Specifically.
You read the book. You did what the book said to do. And you went to the location and all of a sudden it happened.
It worked.
Yeah. Wow.
To me, that was like, you've beat the boss in the video game.
Yeah.
And now, like, but with the outdoors, like especially with hunting and fishing, that's not it though. Like you don't win that level and you're gone. It's like, okay, now I have to refine this to be expert level at it or better at it so I can do this consistently.
Yeah.
And that could have just been luck. I could have just happened onto a school of crappie and just got a lucky day. Because how many times have you sat out there and fished and not caught a damn thing?
Oh, plenty of times.
That's just part of the gig. And that's why it's always me and my friend Derek, who you'll probably meet someday because he's like the only dude up by me, one of the few people who will ever come out and do stuff like this outdoors with me. He loves fishing.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're always just like, he's in my band with me. And we're all, like, we never talk about music. He's like, dude, I gotta get more crappie rigs.
Dude,
it's it.
Yeah, I totally get it. When I was in my bands, I had one guy who went hunting with me once, and now he's really into it. My friend Scott, he was in Freak 13 with me. He's gotten into it way more afterwards, and we went squirrel hunting recently, which I hadn't done in years, and had a ball. But you know, when I go somewhere. And in a lot of settings, if there's that person that's really into the outdoors, you know, we may be at a at a wrestling conference or a wrestling match, and someone notices me or comes up talks about the podcast, and then for the next hour before the match starts, it's like, okay, where'd you find the trout in the surf? What did the water look like? You know, was it sandy green or did it clear up? Because I kept being able to find a pocket to clear. Well, no, it's that kind of thing. You get like, can you help me crack the code? Because what I'm doing ain't working. You know, it's always that thing, you know.
The thing that cracks me up is like, I feel like you're a person magnet. We went out to dinner last night. Yeah. Took me to this awesome Cajun place. I had, what is it, etouffee?
Yeah, shrimp etouffee, Judice's.
So good. It was so good. And so we're sitting there and we're just BSing. We're not even talking about really outdoor stuff.
No.
We're just
food and stuff. Yeah.
Talking about what boudin balls.
Yeah, my daughter discovered boudin balls are good.
So
my daughter
good.
Faith. Yeah.
So good. I discovered they were good.
Yeah.
And literally we're just sitting there minding our own business, and this dude behind you comes up. He said, "Hey, I just heard you were talking about podcasts."
Yeah.
So this dude finds out about both of our podcasts at the same time, just eating dinner. And then you start talking to his wife or something, and she runs a homeschool program, and you got her coming in to do...
And she texted me this morning
wildlife
about
program.
wanting to meet up next week and talk about connecting with the kids. So
that's Chester, man. That's like the quintessential Chester. Like, people just like, hey, this guy knows what he's about.
Well, I don't know, man. I think it's the bandana. They figure he's either nuts or an authority. I don't know.
There's usually a fine line between the two.
It always is. Well, like, I used to have the zebra bandana.
Yeah.
You know, that was a thing for years, and there was a reason for that. And it was because I was doing a particular like bootleg outdoor television thing, and it was more of like a Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom thing, and I needed branding. And I've always wanted like a bandana, a do-rag, or a cap backward or something. And I'm like, you know, a bandana, zebra, my wife's favorite animal. The stripes, one of my favorite scripts, Isaiah 53:5, and zebras represent exotic. But I knew it was time to change last year to the camo thing. And I'll get to a point in a minute, don't worry. A camo thing because this represents conservation to me.
Yeah.
And I want to double down on that. And also, dude, the spiritual mental warfare our world and culture are going through is nuts. And it's kind of like in solidarity, everybody out there struggling too. But conservation, comes to this. And there's a fine line between having a cool look with the zebra bandana and looking like a bad Rick James video. And I'm not cool as Rick James, so I could never have pulled that off. So if somebody goes, dude, you need to get some zebra boots. I said, I'm not going to go and play Super Freak. Okay? No. I ain't got that kind of coolness, so.
That might be a little too far.
That might be a little too far, but, but it's, there is something though. I think passion's contagious. Mm-hmm. And people like this, a guy said fishing. He seemed like he was having fun with it. So let's go ask him about fishing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's just really interesting to be able to just connect with people about the outdoors.
Yeah, it's
really fun. And I don't know. I've said this probably till I'm blue in the face already on the podcast about how what we're doing right now would have never happened if I wouldn't have just started talking to people about the outdoors. I wouldn't be down here right now. I'd be at home just I don't know what I'd be doing. Nothing. But
well, I've thought about that, for me, and I don't think there was another avenue for me, man. I was too far gone. You know what I mean? I'm not a corporate guy. Okay, just go figure. And I was sitting there. I was in high school and took high school journalism, knowing full well I wanted to go into journalism and do what I could to make it in the wildlife realm. Mm-hmm. And it's my 30th year, and it's by the grace of God and a lot of hard work and a lot of good people connected with, but I was terrified of having to work at a refinery or something. I am not cut out for that. So the challenge is, how do you still get a paycheck out of this? And it gets harder and harder and harder. I'm not going to lie about that. But it's the reward is that connection.
Yeah.
That someone you talk to may be the next great sea flats conservationist, because you wrote an article about tarpon in the Bonefish and Tarpon Journal, and they read it. I had someone the other day loading my groceries at Walmart. We do we don't ever go shopping anymore. We just do pick up the groceries. And a lady comes up and says, your poem that you wrote when you were a senior in high school inspired me. And I wrote a poem because of that. And I'm like, huh? And there was a journal at school and we read poems in it. And I'm like, you never know how it's going to touch someone. Because I've had stuff immensely impact me.
Oh, yeah.
That I see and I'm like, man, that just was and that's important. So one of my fun things when my first books came out was my thanks section. And people would always give me feedback. I would think thank you to Ronnie James Dio for, being awesome and having incredible songs that helped me through dark times, or, thank me to someone. And it would always be these different figures. And I'm like, yeah, I know that's not real outdoors related, but life, there are other things out there. And I try to find places to be inspired. Mm-hmm. So I'll see something and go, man, was that cool or what? And how can I add to that or take something from that helps me on my path?
Life is hard, and we're out here doing larger-than-life things, whether it's pushing ourselves physically in the outdoors or mentally at work or in the podcast studio. Absolute Aid is here to help you focus, recover, and stay calm during your most intense moments. Absolute Aid, created by nature, made with science, for those who seek to do more.
So, we were talking a little bit, too, at your place about Tarpon. You were in that magazine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it.
Bonefish and Tarpon Journal.
Bonefish and Tarpon Journal. You wrote an article for them.
Yep.
What's the appeal of tarpon? Because I see someone like Tom Rowland is always catching tarpon. And I know it's the season, I guess, right now. Is that the time of year?
Well, tarpon are probably the top inland sport fish in the world. I have had them break off. I've had them look at me like I was an idiot. I haven't got one in yet. I'm working on tarpon. But I wrote an article in Bonefish and Tarpon Journal about the history of tarpon in Texas and the struggles that we face and the triumphs with stuff. And I think part of it is that tarpon, number one, get huge. They'll hit a fly. You can fly fish for them. Or you can go put up a live crab out for them. Wow. And they are super finicky. And they're like a code to crack. I remember being on a school of tarpon, throwing everything in my tackle box at them. And they looked at me like I was a fool. And I'm like, come on, you don't like that? It looks exactly like a mullet I know you're eating, but that day they weren't eating it.
Yeah.
So I think tarpon are enigma. And I think they're an enigma, and they're also just epic, huge fish.
So what was your article about?
It was about the history of tarpon in Texas. There was a town called Tarpon, Texas. It's Port Aransas. Because in the 1800s, people were traveling from all over America to come catch tarpon. And then something happened, and there were problems with netting and pollution and habitat changes, and tarpon kind of changed. And it's about how we used to kill every tarpon that was caught, although they're not really an edible fish too much, just for trophies. And now people for decades have had a conservation ethic. There's research, and now putting satellite transmitters on them, cracking the code of their migrations, finding out things to conserve habitat. And I started off, I used to go to this bait camp called Bailey's Fish Camp as a kid, and if there's ever a crusty old salt, it was Rob Bailey owned the place. Me and my dad would go there, and he would kind of strut out and go, I don't know what the hell y'all are buying shrimp for. Ain't no fish biting today. Every time. I remember thinking, this is the worst salesman in the world. And one day, my dad was named Chester too. Little Chester, come here, I want to show you something. He takes me in the back, and there's a big chest freezer. And there was a full, 7-foot long tarpon in there. Some guy caught off of Sabine Pass, about 18 miles out, the 18-mile light, which is an area I knew about. And I'd seen him in magazines, seen him on TV, never saw one in person. It blew my mind. I'll start off there. We go through the journey of the research being done, which is incredible, by Bonefish Tarpon Trust. Different universities are involved in this stuff. And then we end up with the fact that nobody's keeping tarpon anymore. No one's killing them. I'm grateful for the freezer fish, but freezer fish are a thing of the past. Now we got a better ethic. And it was just an honor and privilege. I've always wanted to publish, and there I did, and that it was exciting. And what it did, it made me obsess about getting one this summer. So we're gonna work on that. I missed a big one last year in Florida. Man, I had him on for 15 minutes, and he hit a buoy with the line. Kaboom! That was it.
That's the worst, man.
Yeah,
I hate that.
But caught a bonefish last year.
Oh, nice.
And that was my all-time dream fish, was actually a bonefish.
I've heard about bonefish a lot, but again, being from Ohio, it's not on my radar. It's not something I'm oh yeah, I'm gonna go research bonefish. I'm more concerned with what I have around me locally that I can go after.
Yeah, well,
you know what
sense.
I mean?
Well, I never pursued bonefish, although I went to Venezuela, I went to Europe catching fish. I don't know why I never really went after, because bonefish has always been my number one fish. I just never did it, and I finally decided to go do this, and I caught it with a Captain Mo Estevez there in Biscayne Bay, and outside of Miami, and it was unbelievable. It's like someone hooking a bullet train to your line and going, psh. And I caught with Captain Mo. 2 months later, I went back to try to catch a permit. Think of the flat slam, a bonefish, a permit, a tarpon, and didn't get a permit, but I caught a 52-inch barracuda there, and the bonefish that was that long fall harder than the barracuda.
Wow,
that's what a bonefish is about. So, getting connected with that's awesome. And really, Paul, you're a great interviewer, man. You're making me reflect on some. I'm always looking for tomorrow or experience today, but looking back's kind of interesting at the 30-year mark, because I think about that pursuit of that bonefish. Why now? I think it's because I really want to be able to connect with these things that were dreams, and also let people know if they have dreams they thought were dead, they can still come true. And in the great outdoors, there's no age limit.
Nope.
And so if someone's listening, and maybe you're from Ohio, and you've thought about, man, I've always wanted to catch a permit. Man, save up some money, go to Florida, make it happen. Connect with a good guide. Maybe you're from Texas listening to this, and man, you've always wanted to go get on an awesome smallmouth trip. Go up to Lake Erie, man.
Yeah.
And get on a smallmouth. Make it happen. And if you're a parent, what that'll do, because kids are smart, they'll see mom and dad going for their dreams, even something small like a fishing dream.
Yeah.
And it'll let them know that good things are still possible. And that's what ties into our ministry. You have a kid that's been through the worst sexual abuse you could imagine, and or they get a health diagnosis, and when that moment happens, humanity, we tend to think life will never get better than before that happened. And then they get to encounter these amazing animals they dream about. And they know life can be good again. So I think that's even happening for like hunting and fishing, man. It's made me rejuvenated going and doing this stuff. And now, so I was talking on Higher Con of Wildlife with Dr. Aaron Adams for the Bonefish and Tarpon Trust. Mm-hmm. And he said, Chester, bonefish are the gateway drug for the flat slam. I said, oh my God, you've diagnosed me correctly because I've already booked a permit trip. Now I'm talking about tarpon.
Yeah.
I'm like,
you're in trouble.
It's fun stuff, man. It is fun, and that's the thing, man. It's fun, and I hate when people make it all about a competition.
Yeah.
Look, you may not like that I caught my bonefish on spinning gear. I'm going to go back and do it on the fly. You know, I'm going to do that. But I wasn't at the level at the time to be able to do that on fly. But guess what? I don't care. You don't get a vote.
Yeah.
And don't be ashamed because some guy with a trust fund and a ton of money can go out hunting and post everything he did with outfitters his whole life and compare that to your public land spike elk. Mm-hmm. Your public land spike elk is every bit as valid, or cow elk is a trophy. It's all relative to what you enjoy. So enjoy it. And you know what? If you make a couple of the idiots mad, post more pictures to agitate them.
I love that. Well, this last few years, I went super hard because I really wanted to kill a deer with a bow. It was like a dream. That was a dream, and it's a difficult challenge. And I put in the time and the effort in the field and in reading. And one of the most profound things I've read in any book to date about hunting was, I can't remember the name of the book. It was really good. I got it on the Kindle so I could read it in my deer stand on my phone.
I love it.
And so the guy was talking. He's been a hunting guide basically his whole life. He's an expert deer hunter.
Yeah.
He's the guy that's putting maps with wind charts in the book so you know how to approach it.
That's
He's talking
cool,
about
man.
hunting deer that are not pressured on public land. All this crazy stuff that's still like above my head, you know. Mm-hmm. And he said, okay, so you watch a television show where this guy goes out in the stand, you're getting 20, 40 minutes of TV, gets a deer every time. He goes, that man that you've watched, and this isn't jabbing at anybody. This is not a jab at any TV show or anything. He said, this is like the generalization of what the guy was saying. He goes, that man is paying to have his show put on television.
Yep.
He's paying to be put on TV.
Yep.
He's getting money from sponsors to sell you shit that doesn't work so that he can pay to put it on TV. Yeah. And then he's using that sponsorship money to pay an expert guide to put him in a place where he can get success every time with a deer you can't afford.
Dude, I like this.
And he said, it's exactly what you just said. He said, your buck or doe, whatever that you kill on your own on public, private, farm, whatever land is as valuable, if not more valuable, because you had to work your ass off to get it than the guy who just showed up. And like, that really changed my perspective because I put in 5 freaking years to bow kill a deer.
There you go, baby.
5 freaking years. And when that deer, it was not a big deer. It wasn't the best deer. You'll never see it on the, trophy clubs or whatever. Yeah. But man, that deer is going to be on my wall till the day I freaking die as the first deer I ever kill with a bow. Even if I get a bigger one someday, whatever, that's going to be my favorite.
You know what? And that is what really matters. So I can tell, I'll give you the outdoor television skill right now, and I've done outdoor television. I hunt behind high fences, I hunt low fences, I don't care. That doesn't bother me. I eat what I kill. But what happens on a lot of these outdoor television shows, I can give you a lot of the deer shows encapsulation right now. A guy, and it's usually, there is a guy driving in our lane. By the way, we are driving through the Moore Plantation Wildlife Management Area. No relation to me. But the Moore Plantation Wildlife Management is a pretty well-managed parks and wildlife land. A lot of whitetails here, and a growing population of eastern turkeys have been restored.
Oh, nice.
So we're going right through Moore Plantation right now.
It's very beautiful.
Kind of cool, man. Right here in the heart of East Texas, and right over here has been numerous times listed the top largemouth bass lake in North America. Sam Rayburn Reservoir, right here.
Pull over.
And over that way, about 10 miles, 15 miles, is Toledo Bend Reservoir. Also has been listed on the top reservoirs. So we are in bass outdoors heaven here. I had to make a little sidebar.
What are we doing in the car then?
And we got a journey to take to this speaking gig I got.
That's your problem.
Yeah.
Let's go fishing.
I'll throw you out if you want to go. You want to walk in the Texas heat, pal?
No.
Okay.
We've already had a camera overheat in the car with air conditioning on.
In the car. But what happens on a lot of these shows, they'll have a guy, and he'll have about a really hot wife about 15 years younger, and she's out doing the hunting, right? And they're going to this ranch, and they go on the ranch, and the rancher tells them, we're going to put the girl on the stand. And the guy's hunting too, and she's after this one mega buck that only see right at dark, past your legal shooting hours, okay? Only at legal shooting hours. They hunt for like 3 days or whatever. The guy gets his deer. She's gonna shoot this big buck, but she's such a dedicated hunter. She only wants the mega buck. So they go have a meeting at the ranch house that night. And they decide they're gonna stay one more morning. They can change their flight, hunt till noon. And the buck that's been elusive for the whole year, nobody's seen before, dog, is standing in the middle of a pasture with no trees around it, and with 5 other bucks, posing the next morning, and she shoots it. And it's a wrap.
Yeah, baby.
So I have no problem with that, but don't compare that to your experience. Let your experience be your experience, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's, that we were talking about that a little bit earlier, how I said, next year with the summit and stuff, try and come down a little early and hunt something. Because the last 2 years, which is, I'm not complaining, it was my own fault. I've been filming so much stuff, trying to build a social media presence. And this, I've said it on camera multiple times. Next year, I am not doing that. I'm going to hang out, have a good time, fish, hunt, do all the cool stuff. Not worry about film, unless Derek needs help filming. But, maybe coming down, and you were telling me about, people where you can hunt and, reasonably priced, and that's a thing. I've always had a debate about that in my head, but hanging out with you guys has kind of changed my opinion, because these ranches are fenced in. Yeah. But what I experienced this year, even with hogs are overpopulated. There's a huge problem. Everybody complains about how bad they're destroying the landscape, and native plants, native animals are taking over. Yep. I literally was at this ranch for 4 days trying to film hogs, and I didn't film a single freaking hog.
Yeah, it can be tough, man.
So it's not like you're just going in there. I mean, it can be. If you have a high-powered rifle or whatever, you can knock stuff down.
But let me interject this on this situation. This is the way I look at it. I hunt these deep woods in East Texas. You were out with me in these deep woods yesterday. Yep. It ain't easy. So even if I have an animal that comes out halfway easy, thank God. Yeah, I'm down with that. Give me, I need a few stupid animals every once in a while in my life. Because I tend to hunt animals that unfortunately, they decide they're going to have a PhD on avoiding me. So if I have a dumb one that walks out, I am cool with that. Yeah. Because most of the time, that don't happen. But it is a perspective change into different hunting culture. But the idea is that one thing these private lands are doing is producing a lot of wildlife, a lot of recreation. It's fun. And shoot, man, I mean, it's like the hogs. Dude, hogs are smart. Hogs are smart, and they can be all abundant. You don't see any. Even at night, you go out at night and not see them. So
we didn't see any last night.
No, at the summit, me and my friend Britt Perry and Andrew Austin went out, and we got a couple of hogs, the thermals, but a couple. And we had ARs. Of course, we shot like idiots that night with the thermal. We didn't shoot real well. It was not the best shooting experience of my career. Because you got these guys, and they'll be out there and they'll be like, I shoot nothing more than it's got to be at least 500 yards for a challenge. I have to call in an airstrike. I'll be like, look, man, can you napalm the valley? Yeah. Can you just get the minigun and just spray down there? Because I can't even see it. There's something down there, and these guys are shooting so far. So I'm really respect the art and the ability to do that. That's incredible. I'm not making fun of that. What I am making fun of, though, is a few of the morons who try to make everybody else that doesn't do that less than. Yeah. Yes. Forget
that's just human nature.
It is, and everything. It's sports or whatever. But if you can't be that guy, you don't have a chance to shoot at 500, 700 yards, or choose not to, like me, go do what you can do and do it well.
Well, yeah, that's one thing you were asking me, I'm going to go fishing here with Derek again in a few days once we're done filming here with your stuff. And you're asking me, like, what are you guys going for? I said, whatever. Whatever we're going for is what I love the outdoors so much. I could go catch sheep's head again. I don't care. That's fun to catch. I mean, for me, it's all a thrill. It's all new. I've caught them in Florida before. They taste great.
They're great.
They're awesome fish. I mean, if I could go out there, if we go catch redfish, whatever, I don't care.
Redfish on the half shell. That's the ticket. You cut them.
It's up to Derek.
Slice them boogers, and then you, with the scales on, you put that fillet and some foil and stuff, and put all your butter and it's good.
That was funny. Man, this is gonna be a weird podcast. My whole philosophy on food changed when I started hunting, because you can't be squeamish. You can't be squeamish.
No.
And when I was a kid growing up, man, I was really picky. I was picky about just I remember a distinct moment in 6th grade that my teacher said something about hot dogs were cased in pig intestines. I didn't eat hot dogs for 15 years.
No, I get it.
But now, I'm like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I will eat. Because we're I was telling you at the restaurant last night, I was like, sometimes when you order this kind of stuff, it's better to just not ask what it is and eat it, and then find out later. And then your wife was saying oh yeah, the boudin has some liver in it. I was like, that doesn't gross me out at all anymore.
Yeah.
I don't care at all. I would just go grab a liver and cook it and eat it. I'm not worried about that. Since you grew up with all that stuff, was that an issue for you ever? Or is it kind of something you grow into?
I was fairly picky eater when I was a kid, but we didn't eat a lot of really weird exotic stuff. We ate whitetail. We ate a lot of fish. We caught a lot of fish. And that was about it. But when I came into my career part, all of a sudden I'm eating water buffalo and rattlesnake, and I was always interested in it, and so that never was too much of an issue. But I find there is a big issue with people who want to hunt but are afraid it's going to taste gamey.
I never understood. I've only had really good wild game. Really well processed. I would love to process it myself. I really would a lot of the time, but I'm usually so busy, and I know that sounds like whining, but the last time I got a deer, I had to go somewhere right after, and I had to drop it off at a processor. But I took it to the best one in the area, and they did an amazing job. I don't understand what they say gamey means.
I don't either.
I've never understood it.
Me and you have the same thing. I literally don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
People, it's just gamey. I'm like, compared to what? A deer is not supposed to taste like a cow.
No, it's just different.
Tastes like a deer.
It tastes different,
Gamey.
but it's not bad. It's just not. It's like how pork doesn't taste like beef. It's not bad. It's just a different flavor.
It's pork.
And weirdly enough, one of my favorite things I had, wild game. I think it was the red stag.
Yeah,
that meat was so good.
Red Stag's legit,
they
man.
made burger out of it.
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it?
The summit, and I was like, this is one of the best burgers I ever had.
I just had Markhor.
What is that?
So, probably the rarest wild game meat you could get. So there are very few Markhor in America, and they're hunted on exotic ranches in America. And there's not tons of Markhor around the world. They're an exclusive mountain goat that a guy might pay, I don't know, $75,000, $100,000 to go to Pakistan to hunt. Well, a friend of mine has access to a ranch that has an incredible management program for raising Markhor. And a guy went out there, and my buddy Austin Pressey was the guide on the hunt. And Austin said the dude paid $15K to shoot this thing. Didn't eat it. So Austin took all the meat and got it processed. And so Austin, I went out to my friend Thompson Temple's ranch he works on, and Austin visited Austin, and Austin said, dude, take some Markhor meat home. So we took some packages of Markhor. Dude, it was some of the best wild meat I've ever had in my life. It didn't taste gamey either. You know what I mean? It was great.
I want to find something that someone tastes gamey someday and try it. I've heard this on the past. I don't know where I've heard this, but I've heard that distinct gamey flavor that people talk about is if someone screws up butchering it and they grind in the scent glands from the deer.
That probably would happen.
But, whatever. I've never had anything that I would consider quote unquote gamey.
No.
But I want to try it.
And I've killed tons of wild pigs. It's really gamey.
Yeah.
Whitetails, exotics, no, none of the above. Well, what's the kind of most oddball thing you've ever eaten? You ever eaten something you like that was really kind of off the grid a little bit?
Let me think. Off the grid, oddball. I think, though, I don't have access to a lot of weird food.
Yeah.
I guess. So, like, it's just, like, normal wild game from people I know. Like, I've had goose, antelope, wild pig.
Was that pronghorn?
Yeah.
Was it good?
Yeah. They made breakfast sausage out of it.
Really, man? That's cool. I've never eaten pronghorn.
Deer, fish. I think, like, the thing that I thought that I had that was the grossest was caviar I tried once.
I tried caviar once too. It tastes like salt.
Yeah, I didn't really understand the appeal of it other than it's really expensive.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing I've ever eaten.
I ate turkey testicles once.
Turkey testicles?
And I'm not big on I don't generally eat reproductive organs and stuff.
Okay.
But I was on my turkey quest year one and we went to this restaurant during the quest on a trip for it and they had turkey balls. So it was, I forgot what they called it.
Were they
good? It kind of tastes like honestly, it tastes like a little piece of like fried chicken or something. You know what I mean?
If you deep fry it, that's not even fair.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm not gonna I wouldn't eat it if it was like sautéed or something. I have a little bit of
sautéed
turkey balls. We're not gonna do that.
We had so there is a festival in Ohio called the Testicle Festival, and they fry up cow balls, I think, or sheep balls. I want to go to that. I need to try it. I need to go. My uncle goes to it.
I'll let you go.
He basically said you get drunk and eat balls. That's like the whole day. It's like a fundraiser or something.
Texans get a lot about being rednecks. There are obviously a lot in Ohio. Okay.
Oh, hell yeah. Have you ever been to Ohio?
Yeah, I played shows in Ohio.
Oh, yeah, you were talking about that. So, yeah. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't call myself an adventurous eater. I just don't think wild game is weird.
It's not. I look at it this way. Why would you want to limit yourself to beef, pork, chicken, turkey?
Well, that's all people eat. Oh, and there was a point I was trying to get to. I know buddies of mine. Oh, camera's jiggling all over the place here. I know buddies of mine that will kill a deer. So you gut it, you pull all the guts out in a big bloody mass on the ground.
Yeah.
And they'll eat the deer.
Yeah.
But then you're like, hey, I'm going to eat the heart. And they're like, that's disgusting. Like, it's literally another muscle in the body. Why is the heart grosser? Like, I could see being a little squeamish about it.
I won't eat a heart because it looks to me like it'd be too tough.
It's not.
It's not tough?
Dude,
I've eaten duck hearts.
I've never had duck hearts, but the last deer I split the heart in half, folded it open, removed all the cartilagey stuff, laid it flat like a steak. It was like a little bit tough.
Yeah.
But it would be like a cheap steak.
We'll have to try that cheap deer steak tonight,
but
baby.
it tasted like deer meat.
As long as it tastes like deer meat, I'm good.
I mean, if you marinated it in something that'll break it down a little bit, I feel like it would be better.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know, I've heard bad things. And I tried it. Freaking medium rare deer heart, dude.
Just avoid the brains on anything. Don't eat brains.
Yeah. CWD.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
All that stuff. But yeah.
And there's some stuff vultures need to eat.
Yeah, the guts.
Yeah, that kind
coyotes eat all that junk.
Let them eat that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna. I could see like the filtering organs could freak people out, but I don't know. I consider taking
catfish bait.
Yeah. I don't really like catfish though.
What?
I'm not a fan. Maybe I haven't had it good. I've only ever had like shitty fried catfish at like a diner.
Like in Ohio?
Yeah.
That could be the problem.
Yeah.
You gotta come to the South and get some catfish.
Well, I mean, we are in the South right now, so maybe if we find a place. Maybe tonight
we're going to Arkansas, so maybe they got some.
So speaking of that, this is going to be a long freaking podcast. So let's get to the point here. So we're going to the Fouke, Arkansas Bigfoot.
It's the Fouke Monster Festival.
The Fouke Monster Festival, and as everybody knows, it's no secret, I'm a huge Bigfoot fanatic. I freaking love it. I do the October every year.
Yeah, it's always been an interest of mine too.
So you're speaking on a new topic of yours, which you kind of had touched on my original podcast.
I've been teasing a little bit. I've been teasing a little bit.
So what is your presentation on? And we'll wrap it up with that.
Yeah, man. So the presentation's on. It's called Dark Outdoors, and it's a new media platform. It's a podcast. It's a blog. I did a little teaser last year on it, and it was well received. So I'm going full force with it. Someone asked me a few years back, what's the most dangerous thing in the woods? Without blinking, I said people. And I went into these levels of danger that humans can pose. From idiot hunters that shouldn't be in the woods, which are about 5% of us, but they kill enough people every year to remind us they shouldn't be out there.
Like the whole Dick Cheney incident.
Yeah, I mean, even like presidential people and stuff, vice presidents, golly. You got all these, like exactly. I rest my case. Meth labs.
Yeah.
Then you get into things like human traffickers, serial killers. And this is real stuff no one's reporting on. Then the increasing wildlife conflict with people. Human populations exploding. Wildlife populations exploding. There is a collision that manifests in the media, but not in the correct way. And then bizarre weather occurrences that are killing people and weird things. So the way I say it is, the outdoors is a place of awesome recreation and tranquility and fun, but sometimes the experience goes dark. And we're trying to shine light and raise awareness of these things. So I'm going to be talking about getting ran off a mountain by drug pushers and drug traffickers in California in 2002. I'm going to talk about finding a meth lab in the woods. I'm going to talk about my friend finding Ted Bundy's inscription on a forest in a tree from the 1970s where he escaped into the forest.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some shocking, scary wildlife encounter statistics. We're going to talk about how I think feral hog attacks are about to be commonplace. Coyote attacks are increasing. And we're going to talk about how to avoid this stuff and at some level how to strike back.
Well, thanks for scaring the shit out of me.
Yeah, well, we're going to Arkansas. What could be scary in the woods of Arkansas? We did see Deliverance.
Yeah, I'm excited because Boggy Creek is like iconic.
Yeah,
you're into Bigfoot.
So the Legend of Boggy Creek, this is the 50th year celebration, the official 50th celebration for the Legend of Boggy Creek.
They're going to have some cool there.
There are estimates that Boggy Creek in 1972, and it played throughout the 70s at drive-ins. There are estimates that thing could have made $50 million back then. I've heard numbers higher than that. And it was a mega hit. It had a huge impact on a lot of us. And it's awesome quasi-documentary. And it's fun. And we're going to find ourselves in the middle of it. And I get to talk about a topic I think that anyone who spends time in the woods needs to hear.
Yeah. I'm just excited to see the Monster Mart.
Oh, Monster Mart's awesome.
All right, Chester. Well, we still got a little bit of a drive, and I'm going to eat my strange flavored Mexican snacks that I bought at the gas station.
Weird Mexican food, like snacks everywhere we go.
Well, you go into a gas station, and they have all these cool like Mexican chili flavored candies and stuff that I don't have in Ohio. So I'm just grabbing them up, trying them. They got chili coated pineapple. I don't know what I was eating last night. I got these cool chips, Turbo Flames.
A friend of mine worked in South Louisiana one time delivering some stuff to ships, and he comes back, he goes, "You got to see this." And he brought back a package of pickled pig's lips. So this goes back to my theme. Some things vultures need to eat.
All right, Chester. Well, before we go, again, if you want to throw your links out so people can find them and all that stuff.
Yeah, man. My blog at highercalling.net. Go subscribe to that. Higher Calling Wildlife on Facebook, at The Chester Moore on Instagram.
All right. Well, we got some more driving to do.
Yep.